Commander Zethkar's massive red scales gleamed under the harsh light of the war room as he studied the holographic display floating before him. His yellow eyes burned with barely contained fury, and smoke wisped from his nostrils with each angry breath. The Red Dragon clan had ruled the Outer Rim territories for over 3 centuries, and no species had ever dared to challenge their authority. Until now. The humans destroyed our mining station on Kepler 442, growled Sub-Commander Vexthor, his claws scraping against the metal table. 17 of our warriors died in the explosion. They even took our young ones as prisoners. Zethkar's roar shook the entire battleship. The sound echoed through the corridors, making lesser crew members tremble in fear. His massive fist slammed down on the control panel, cracking the reinforced metal. "Humans!" He spat the word like a curse. "These soft-skinned weaklings think they can steal our children and escape unpunished?" The Red Dragon clan had heard stories about humans from other species throughout the galaxy. Most described them as frail creatures who died easily, with short lifespans and weak bodies. They had no natural armor, no claws, no fangs worth mentioning. Yet somehow, these pathetic beings had managed to infiltrate one of the clan's most secure facilities and escape with 3 dragon hatchlings. "Sir, our intelligence reports suggest the humans have taken the young ones to their colony ship," reported Navigation Officer Kixera, her voice carefully controlled. Even she knew better than to show weakness when the commander was in such a rage. "The ship is called New Haven, and it's currently in the Proxima system." Zethkar turned toward the massive viewing window, staring out at the stars. His reflection showed a fearsome creature standing nearly 12 feet tall, with crimson scales that looked like they were forged in fire itself. His wings were folded against his back, but when extended they could span 30 feet. Every inch of his body was designed for war and intimidation. "Prepare the assault fleet," he commanded, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "We will show these humans what happens when they touch our young. Every last one of them will burn for this insult." The bridge crew immediately sprang into action. Within hours, 15 dragon warships had assembled in formation around Zethkar's flagship, the Flame of Vengeance. Each ship bristled with plasma cannons and missile arrays capable of reducing entire planets to ash. The Red Dragon clan's reputation was built on overwhelming force and absolute ruthlessness. As they traveled through hyperspace toward the Proxima system, Zethkar couldn't stop thinking about the 3 missing hatchlings. Scarlet, Emberwing, and Little Flametooth were barely 6 months old. They were the pride of the clan, destined to become mighty warriors like their parents. The thought of them in human hands made his blood boil with protective fury. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the human colony ship," announced Communications Officer Thexor. "They want to speak with you directly." "Put them through," Zethkar snarled. "I want to hear their pathetic excuses before I incinerate them all." The main screen flickered to life, showing a human face that looked impossibly young and fragile to dragon eyes. The creature had brown hair and kind eyes behind strange, transparent shields. It wore simple clothes that offered no protection whatsoever. This was supposed to be their leader? "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the colony ship New Haven," the human said calmly. "I believe we need to talk about the 3 young dragons currently in our care." "You mean the 3 hatchlings you stole from us?" Zethkar roared, leaning toward the screen. "Return them immediately, or I will turn your ship into a floating graveyard." Captain Chen's expression didn't change, which surprised the dragon commander. Most species cowered when faced with his wrath. But this human seemed completely unafraid. "We didn't steal anyone, Commander. We rescued them from your mining station after it suffered a catastrophic reactor explosion. Our sensors detected life signs trapped in the wreckage." "Lies!" Zethkar's claws extended as he spoke. "You attacked our station and kidnapped our young." "The explosion was caused by a faulty power core," Captain Chen replied patiently. We have the data recordings if you'd like to see them. Your mining operation was using unsafe energy extraction methods. The reactor went critical and destroyed half the facility. For a moment, doubt flickered in Zethkar's mind. The Red Dragon clan was known for pushing their equipment beyond safe limits to maximize profits. But the idea that humans had actually helped his people seemed impossible. Even if that's true, you still have our hatchlings. Return them now. I understand your concern, Captain Chen said, but there's something you need to know about their condition. They were badly injured in the explosion, and they're currently receiving medical treatment. Moving them right now could be dangerous. The Dragon Commander's rage cooled slightly, replaced by worry. What kind of injuries? Are they dying? They're stable now, but it was close. Scarlet had severe burns on her left wing, Emberwing suffered internal injuries from debris impact, and Little Flametooth had smoke inhalation damage to his lungs. Our medical team has been working around the clock to help them heal. Zethkar found himself in an impossible situation. Everything he knew about humans suggested they were enemies of the Dragon clans. But Captain Chen's words carried the ring of truth. The mining stations did have a history of accidents, and the humans' genuine concern for the hatchlings was clear in her voice. "I want to see them," he demanded. "Show me proof that they're alive and unharmed." Captain Chen nodded. "Of course, but I should warn you, they're currently in our medical bay under the care of Dr. Marcus Webb. He's our chief physician and has been personally tending to their needs." The screen shifted to show the interior of what was obviously a human medical facility. The room was clean and bright, with strange machines and monitors that Zethkar didn't recognize. But what he saw next made him pause in complete confusion. There, on a large bed in the center of the room, lay all 3 dragon hatchlings. Their injuries were clearly visible, but appeared to be healing well. Scarlet's wing was carefully bandaged, Emberwing had monitoring devices attached to his small chest, and Flametooth was breathing through a clear mask that must have been delivering clean air to his damaged lungs. But the most shocking sight was the human sitting beside them. Dr. Webb was a large man with gentle hands and a calm demeanor. He was carefully checking each hatchling's vital signs while speaking to them in soft, soothing tones. The young dragons weren't restrained or caged. Instead, they seemed completely relaxed and comfortable. As Zethkar watched, Little Flametooth made a small chirping sound and nuzzled closer to the human doctor. Dr. Webb smiled and gently stroked the hatchling's scales, which immediately caused the baby dragon to purr with contentment. It was a sound that Zethkar hadn't heard from any of the young ones since before their parents had died in a territorial dispute. "They've bonded with Dr. Webb," Captain Chen explained. "At first, they were terrified and wouldn't let anyone near them. But Marcus has a way with all creatures. He's been sleeping in the medical bay to make sure they never feel alone." The Dragon Commander stared at the screen in disbelief. His entire worldview was being challenged by what he was seeing. These weren't the cruel, heartless humans that clan legends described. These were beings who had risked their lives to save dragon young and were now caring for them with the same dedication that dragon parents would show. "This changes nothing," Zethkar said, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. "They belong with their own kind." "I agree completely," Captain Chen replied. "But as I said, moving them right now could put their lives at risk. Dr. Webb estimates they need at least another week of intensive care before they'll be strong enough for transport." Sub-Commander Vexthor moved closer to Zethkar and whispered urgently, "Sir, this could be a trap. Humans are known for their deception and trickery." But Zethkar was watching the screen intently. As he observed, Dr. Webb noticed that Emberwing's bandages needed changing. The human's movements were careful and practiced, showing no fear despite handling a creature that would grow up to be a deadly predator. The young dragon remained perfectly still during the procedure, clearly trusting the doctor completely. "Your Dr. Webb," Zethkar said slowly. He has experience with dragon physiology? Marcus has studied the anatomy and medical needs of over 200 different species, Captain Chen answered with obvious pride. When we found the hatchlings, he immediately began researching everything known about dragon biology. He's been working with our xenobiology team to ensure they receive the best possible care. And you expect me to believe you're doing this out of kindness? Zethkar's skepticism was clear in his voice. Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, then said, "Commander, may I ask you something personal? Do you have children?" The question caught Zethkar off guard. Yes. 2 sons. Both grown warriors now. Then you understand that when you see a child in danger, you don't stop to ask about their species or their politics. You simply help them because it's the right thing to do. That's all we did. For the first time in decades, Zethkar found himself genuinely uncertain about what to do. His entire fleet was ready for battle. His warriors were eager for revenge. But the evidence before him suggested that the humans had actually saved the 3 most precious members of his clan. "I need time to consider this," he said finally. "But understand this, Captain Chen. If any harm comes to those hatchlings while they're in your care, I will personally ensure that your ship becomes a monument to my vengeance." "I understand your protective instincts, Commander," Captain Chen replied. "As parents ourselves, we would feel exactly the same way in your position. You're welcome to maintain a safe distance and monitor our activities. We have nothing to hide." The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar staring at a blank screen while his bridge crew waited for orders. The Dragon Commander's mind was racing with conflicting thoughts and emotions. Everything he had been taught about humans suggested they were enemies, but everything he had just witnessed suggested they were protectors. "Sir?" Sub-Commander Vexthor's voice was carefully neutral. "What are your orders?" Zethkar turned to face his crew, knowing that his next decision would either prevent or start a war that could engulf the entire sector. The weight of leadership had never felt heavier than it did in this moment. "We maintain position at the edge of the system," he said finally. "Constant surveillance of the human ship, but no hostile actions. Not yet." "Sir, the other clan leaders are expecting us to attack," Vexthor warned. "If word gets out that we hesitated to recover our own young, then we make sure word doesn't get out," Zethkar replied firmly. "And if anyone questions my judgment, they can face me in personal combat to settle the matter." The bridge fell silent at this declaration. Zethkar's skill in battle was legendary, and no one was foolish enough to challenge him directly. But the Dragon Commander could sense the confusion and doubt among his crew. They had come here expecting a glorious battle, not a complex moral dilemma. As the hours passed, Zethkar found himself returning again and again to watch the live feeds from the human medical bay. Dr. Webb never seemed to leave the hatchling's side except for brief moments to eat or rest. The man's dedication was complete and unwavering, showing a level of care that rivaled what dragon parents provided for their own young. Late in the ship's night cycle, Zethkar was alone in his quarters when he received an urgent communication from the bridge. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy readings from one of the hatchlings. It appears to be some kind of medical emergency." The Dragon Commander rushed back to the bridge and immediately opened the channel to the human ship. On the screen, he could see Dr. Webb working frantically over little Flametooth, who appeared to be having difficulty breathing. Alarms were sounding in the medical bay, and several other humans had arrived to assist. "What's happening?" Zethkar demanded. Captain Chen's face appeared on a smaller portion of the screen. "Flametooth is having complications with his lung healing. There's been some kind of rejection response to the treatment. Dr. Webb is trying to stabilize him now." Zethkar watched helplessly as the human doctor worked with calm efficiency, despite the obvious crisis. The man's hands never shook as he administered medications and adjusted the breathing apparatus. Other humans assisted without getting in his way. Clearly a well-trained medical team responding to an emergency. "Is there anything we can do to help?" Zethkar found himself asking, surprising his own crew. "Dr. Webb could use access to more detailed information about dragon respiratory systems," Captain Chen replied. "Our databases are limited, and we're essentially improvising based on what we know about similar species." Without hesitation, Zethkar turned to his medical officer. "Transmit everything we have on hatchling physiology. Emergency medical procedures, drug interactions, everything." "Sir, that information is classified clan knowledge," the officer protested. "Those are my people dying down there," Zethkar roared. "Send the data immediately." As the medical information flowed from the dragon ship to the human vessel, Zethkar continued watching the screen. Dr. Webb received the data and immediately began implementing new treatment protocols based on dragon-specific medical knowledge. His adaptation was remarkably quick for someone who had never worked with dragon physiology before. Slowly, little Flame-Tooth's breathing began to stabilize. The crisis alarms stopped sounding, and the young dragon's vital signs returned to normal ranges. Dr. Webb continued monitoring him carefully, but the immediate danger had passed. "Thank you," Captain Chen said simply. "Your medical data just saved his life." Zethkar stared at the screen, watching as Dr. Webb gently stroked Flame-Tooth's scales while the hatchling settled into peaceful sleep. The human looked exhausted but relieved, clearly having taken the young dragon's suffering as personally as any parent would. In that moment, Commander Zethkar of the Red Dragon Clan made a decision that would change everything. These humans weren't enemies to be destroyed. They were something far more rare and valuable in a galaxy full of conflict and violence. They were friends worth protecting. 3 days had passed since the medical emergency, and Commander Zethkar found himself in a situation he had never experienced before. Instead of planning an attack on the human colony ship, he was coordinating a joint medical effort to ensure the best possible care for the 3 dragon hatchlings. The transformation in his thinking was so complete that even he was surprised by it. Dr. Webb had requested a real-time consultation with dragon medical experts, and Zethkar had assigned his best physicians to work directly with the human doctor. The collaboration was yielding remarkable results. Not only were the hatchlings healing faster than expected, but both species were learning valuable medical techniques from each other. "Commander," announced Communications Officer Thexer, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Dragon High Council." Zethkar's blood ran cold. The High Council consisted of the 5 most powerful Dragon Clan leaders in the sector, and they rarely contacted field commanders unless something was seriously wrong. He had been hoping to resolve the situation with the humans before word reached the council, but clearly that hope had been naive. "Put them through," he said, straightening his massive frame and preparing for what would likely be a difficult conversation. The main screen filled with the image of Elder Firestorm, the ancient red dragon who served as the council's primary speaker. Her scales had darkened with age to a deep crimson that was almost black, and her yellow eyes held the wisdom and ruthlessness of someone who had ruled for over 5 centuries. "Commander Zethkar," her voice carried across space with the authority of absolute power. "We have received disturbing reports about your mission. You were ordered to retrieve our stolen hatchlings and punish the humans responsible. Yet our intelligence suggests your fleet has been sitting idle for nearly a week." "Elder Firestorm, the situation is more complex than initial reports suggested," Zethkar replied carefully. "The humans did not steal the hatchlings. They rescued them from a mining station accident and have been providing medical care." Elder Firestorm's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Are you telling me that you believe human propaganda over the evidence of your own eyes?" "I am telling you what I have witnessed directly," Zethkar said, his voice gaining strength. The hatchlings are safe, healing, and being cared for by skilled physicians. The humans have shown no hostility and have cooperated fully with our medical personnel. Impossible, growled another voice from off-screen. Zethkar recognized it as belonging to Warlord Ashclaw, one of the most aggressive members of the Council. Humans are treacherous by nature. This is obviously a trap designed to make us lower our guard. With respect, Warlord Ashclaw, I have seen the evidence with my own eyes, Zethkar replied. The humans are genuinely committed to helping our young ones recover. They have shared their medical knowledge freely and asked for nothing in return except the opportunity to ensure the hatchlings' health. Elder Firestorm was silent for a long moment, studying Zethkar's expression through the transmission. Commander, you are either being deceived, or you have allowed these humans to corrupt your judgment. Either way, your mission parameters have changed. High Admiral Scorchtalon is en route to your position with a battle fleet. You will transfer command to him upon his arrival. The pronouncement hit Zethkar like a physical blow. High Admiral Scorchtalon was known throughout the Dragon territories for his absolute ruthlessness and his hatred of all non-dragon species. If he took command, every human on the colony ship would be dead within hours, regardless of what they had done for the hatchlings. Elder Firestorm, I respectfully request that you reconsider, Zethkar said. Allow me to complete negotiations with the humans. I believe a peaceful resolution is possible. Negotiations? Warlord Ashclaw's roar of laughter was like the sound of grinding metal. Since when do dragons negotiate with prey animals? Commander Zethkar, you have clearly spent too much time among these soft creatures. You are thinking like them instead of like a dragon. I am thinking like a protector of our young, Zethkar shot back, his own anger beginning to rise. And I am telling you that attacking these humans would be not only wrong, but strategically foolish. They have skills and knowledge that could benefit our entire civilization. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Zethkar staring at a blank screen. He knew that his career was likely over, and possibly his life as well if High Admiral Scorchtalon decided to make an example of him. But in that moment, he discovered something about himself that he had never known existed. He found that he cared more about protecting innocent beings than he did about following orders that he knew were wrong. Sir, Sub-Commander Vexthor approached cautiously. What are your orders? Zethkar turned to face his bridge crew, seeing uncertainty and fear in their expressions. They were all loyal soldiers who had followed his commands without question for years. Now he was asking them to choose between their duty to the High Council and their duty to him personally. Open a channel to Captain Chen, he said finally. She needs to know what's coming. When Captain Chen's face appeared on the screen, Zethkar could see that she immediately sensed something was wrong. Her expression became carefully neutral, the look of someone preparing for bad news. Captain, I need to inform you that a larger dragon fleet is approaching this system, Zethkar said without preamble. High Admiral Scorchtalon is coming to take command of this situation, and he will not be as reasonable as I have been. Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, processing this information. How much time do we have? Approximately 18 standard hours, Zethkar replied. Scorchtalon commands a force of over 50 warships, and he has explicit orders to destroy your vessel and recover the hatchlings by force. The hatchlings still aren't ready for transport, Captain Chen said. Dr. Webb believes Flametooth needs at least another 4 days before it would be safe to move him. The others could potentially be moved, but it would still be risky. Zethkar found himself facing an impossible choice. He could follow his orders and hand the hatchlings over to Scorchtalon, knowing that the Admiral would likely execute the human medical team out of spite, or he could take actions that would put him in direct opposition to the Dragon High Council, effectively making him a traitor to his own species. There is another option, Captain Chen said quietly, but it would require a level of trust that I'm not sure exists between our species. What option? Zethkar asked. Our ship has advanced defensive capabilities that most species don't know about. We could protect the hatchlings and your ships as well, but only if we work together. The question is whether you're willing to stand against your own people to do what's right for the children. The bridge fell silent as everyone processed the implications of what Captain Chen was suggesting. She was asking Zethkar to commit an act that would be considered treason by every dragon alive, but she was also offering him a chance to protect not just the hatchlings, but his own crew as well. "Show me these defensive capabilities," Zethkar said. Captain Chen nodded to someone off-screen, and suddenly the space around the human colony ship began to shimmer and distort. Energy patterns that Zethkar had never seen before rippled outward from the vessel, creating what appeared to be a massive protective barrier. "Shield technology," Captain Chen explained. "We've been working on it for decades, but this is the first time we've had to use it defensively against another spacefaring species. The barrier can absorb and redirect energy weapons, and it's strong enough to withstand sustained bombardment from capital ships." "Impossible," breathed Navigation Officer Kixra. "No species has that kind of technology." "Humans do," Captain Chen said simply, "but we've never used it aggressively. It's purely defensive, designed to protect colonies and medical vessels like ours. We believe that protection is more valuable than destruction." Zethkar stared at the energy patterns surrounding the human ship, realizing that everything he thought he knew about human capabilities was wrong. These weren't weak creatures cowering in the galaxy's shadows. They were a species that had chosen to focus their technological development on preservation rather than conquest. "Why didn't you activate this barrier when my fleet first arrived?" he asked. "Because you hadn't threatened us," Captain Chen replied. "We saw angry parents coming to rescue their children, not enemies coming to destroy us. There's a difference." The simple honesty in her words struck Zethkar like a lightning bolt. In that moment, he understood something fundamental about human nature that no dragon had ever grasped before. They didn't automatically assume hostility from other species. They looked for the good in everyone they met, even when those beings arrived with weapons powered and threats ready. "Captain Chen," Zethkar said slowly, "I want to make you an offer. My fleet will stand with yours when High Admiral Scorchtalon arrives. Together we can protect the hatchlings until they're ready for safe transport." The gasps from his bridge crew were audible, but Zethkar ignored them. He was making a decision based on what he knew was right, not on what his superiors expected him to do. "Commander, that would put you in direct conflict with your own chain of command," Captain Chen said. "I can't ask you to sacrifice your career for our safety." "You're not asking," Zethkar replied. "I'm choosing. Those hatchlings deserve to grow up in a galaxy where different species help each other instead of constantly fighting. If standing for that principle makes me a traitor, then so be it." Subcommander Vexthor stepped forward. "Sir, the crew stands with you. If you believe this is the right course of action, then we will follow your lead." One by one, the other bridge officers voiced their agreement. Navigation Officer Kixra, Communications Officer Thexer, even the weapons specialists who had been eager for battle just days earlier. They had all watched the humans caring for the dragon hatchlings, and they had all reached the same conclusion as their commander. Some things were more important than following orders. "Thank you," Captain Chen said, and Zethkar could hear genuine emotion in her voice. "Dr. Webb wanted me to tell you that all 3 hatchlings are asking for you. They've seen you on the communication screens, and they recognize you as someone important. Would you like to visit them directly?" The idea of leaving his ship and boarding a human vessel would have been unthinkable just a week earlier. Now Zethkar found himself genuinely excited by the prospect of meeting the hatchlings face to face. "Prepare a shuttle," he told his crew, "and transmit our defensive formations to Captain Chen's tactical officer. If we're going to stand together, we need to coordinate our efforts." An hour later, Zethkar found himself walking through the corridors of a human starship for the first time in his life. The passages were smaller than dragon ships required, forcing him to duck his head and fold his wings tightly against his back. But everything was clean, well-maintained, and designed with obvious care for the beings who lived and worked there. Humans he encountered along the way stopped to stare, but not with the fear he expected. Instead, their expressions showed curiosity and something that looked almost like welcome. Several even nodded respectfully as he passed, treating him like an honored guest rather than a potential threat. Dr. Webb was waiting in the medical bay when Zethkar arrived, and the Dragon Commander was struck immediately by the man's obvious exhaustion. The human physician had clearly been pushing himself to his limits caring for the hatchlings, but his eyes were bright with genuine pleasure at meeting Zethkar in person. "Commander, it's an honor," Dr. Webb said, extending his hand in what Zethkar recognized as a human greeting gesture. "The little ones have been asking about you constantly." As if summoned by his words, 3 small voices suddenly called out in unison, "Uncle Zeth! Uncle Zeth!" Zethkar turned toward the sound and felt his heart skip a beat. The 3 hatchlings were sitting up in their medical beds, looking infinitely better than they had during the emergency days earlier. Their scales were bright and healthy, their eyes were clear and alert, and most importantly, they were happy. "Uncle?" Zethkar asked Dr. Webb quietly. The human doctor smiled. "They couldn't pronounce your full name, so it became Uncle Zeth. I hope that's acceptable. They talk about you as if you're family." Family? The word hit Zethkar with unexpected force. These weren't just clan hatchlings he was responsible for protecting. In their young minds, he had become something much more personal and precious. Little Flametooth, the smallest of the 3, made grabbing motions with his claws. "Uncle Zeth, pick me up! Dr. Marcus says I'm getting strong!" Without hesitation, Zethkar carefully lifted the young dragon, marveling at how much weight he had gained since the rescue. Flametooth immediately snuggled against the commander's chest, purring contentedly. "They've been asking when they could see their families," Dr. Webb said, "but they've also been asking if they can stay friends with us after they go home. Apparently the idea of never seeing us again is very upsetting to them." Zethkar looked around the medical bay, seeing the evidence of weeks of dedicated care. Human toys mixed with improvised dragon comfort items. Charts showing each hatchling's progress were covered with encouraging notes from the entire medical staff. This wasn't just a treatment facility. It was a place where genuine bonds had formed between species that were supposed to be natural enemies. "Dr. Webb," Zethkar said, "what you've done here goes beyond medical care. You've shown these young ones that the galaxy can be a place of kindness instead of just conflict. That's a gift that will shape who they become for the rest of their lives." The human doctor's eyes misted slightly. "They've given us just as much, Commander. Taking care of them has reminded our entire crew why we do this work. It's not about politics or territory or resources. It's about making sure the next generation has a better universe to grow up in." As Zethkar held little Flametooth and watched Scarlet and Emberwing playing with human nurses, he realized that Dr. Webb was absolutely right. The future didn't have to be an endless cycle of species fighting species for dominance. It could be something much better. It could be a place where young dragons and humans grew up as friends. But first, they had to survive High Admiral Scorchtalon's arrival. And that would require the kind of cooperation between species that had never been attempted before in recorded galactic history. Zethkar just hoped they were strong enough to make it work. High Admiral Scorchtalon's arrival was announced by the screaming of proximity alarms throughout both the human colony ship and Zethkar's fleet. 53 Dragon warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect battle formation, their weapon systems already powered and targeting solutions locked onto the human vessel. The Admiral's flagship, the Eternal Fury, was a massive dreadnought that dwarfed every other ship in the system. Zethkar stood on the bridge of his own vessel, watching the overwhelming display of firepower that had just arrived to destroy everything he had come to care about. His 15 ships, combined with the human colony ship's defenses, were about to face odds that no military strategist would consider survivable. "Sir," Communications Officer Thexor announced, "High Admiral Scorchtalon is demanding immediate communication." "Put him through," Zethkar replied, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether diplomacy could still prevent a massacre. High Admiral Scorchtalon appeared on the main screen, and even other dragons found him intimidating. His scales were black as space itself, with red markings that seemed to glow with their own inner fire. Battle scars covered his massive frame, each one a reminder of enemies he had destroyed over his long career. His eyes held no warmth, no mercy, and no patience for anything that stood between him and his objectives. "Commander Zethkar," the Admiral's voice was like the sound of grinding steel, "you will stand down immediately and surrender command of this operation to me. Your failure to complete a simple retrieval mission has brought shame upon the entire Red Dragon clan." "Admiral Scorchtalon," Zethkar replied carefully, "the situation here is not what we were initially led to believe. The humans rescued our hatchlings from a mining accident and have been providing excellent medical care. There is no need for hostile action." Scorchtalon's roar of laughter was terrifying. "Medical care? From humans? Commander, your mind has clearly been poisoned by prolonged exposure to these weak creatures. Stand aside so that real dragons can handle this properly." "I will not stand aside," Zethkar said firmly. "The hatchlings are still recovering from their injuries, and they have formed bonds with the human medical staff. Moving them now could endanger their health." The Admiral's expression shifted from amusement to deadly fury. "Are you defying a direct order from the High Council?" Before Zethkar could answer, Captain Chen's voice came through on an open channel. "Admiral Scorchtalon, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the New Haven. I would like to speak with you directly about the situation." "I do not speak with prey animals," Scorchtalon snarled. "Humans exist only to serve their betters or to die. You will surrender the stolen hatchlings immediately, or I will take them from your wreckage." "The hatchlings are not stolen property," Captain Chen replied calmly. "They are children who were injured and scared, and we helped them heal. Surely a leader of your stature can understand the value of protecting young ones, regardless of their species." Scorchtalon's response was to order his weapons officers to begin charging their plasma cannons. "You have 30 seconds to surrender unconditionally, or I will demonstrate why dragons rule the galaxy while humans cower in its shadows." That was when something unexpected happened. A new voice came through the communication system, young and clear and absolutely fearless. "Admiral Scorchtalon?" It was Little Flametooth, somehow having gained access to the communication array in the medical bay. "Uncle Zeth told us about you. Are you really the biggest, strongest dragon in the whole universe?" The Admiral paused, clearly not expecting to hear from one of the hatchlings directly. "I am High Admiral Scorchtalon, commander of the largest battle fleet in the sector. Who dares to address me without permission?" "I'm Flametooth," the young dragon replied happily. "Dr. Marcus saved my life when my lungs were hurt really bad. He stayed with me every day and night until I got better. Are you going to say thank you to him for helping me?" For the first time since his arrival, High Admiral Scorchtalon seemed uncertain. "Hatchling, you have been deceived by human lies. These creatures are our enemies, not our friends." "But Dr. Marcus isn't mean," Flametooth said, confusion clear in his voice. "He tells us stories and plays games with us and makes sure we're never scared." Scarlet and Emberwing love him too. Don't you want to meet him?" Before Scorchtalon could respond, Scarlet's voice joined the conversation. "Admiral, Uncle Zeth says you're very important, but Dr. Webb is important too. He knows how to make hurt things better, and he taught the other humans how to take care of dragons." Emberwing added his own contribution. "The humans have a special food maker that can make dragon food that tastes just like home. Captain Chen learned our favorite songs and sings them to us when we're sad." "Why would you want to hurt people who are so nice to us?" Zethkar watched Scorchtalon's expression as the three young voices continued describing their experiences with the humans. The Admiral's certainty was clearly being shaken by the genuine affection and trust in the hatchlings' words. "Hatchlings," Scorchtalon said slowly, "you are too young to understand the political complexities of interspecies relations. These humans may seem kind, but they are ultimately acting in their own self-interest." "What self-interest?" Flametooth asked innocently. Dr. Webb's voice came through the channel. "It means doing things only to help yourself, little one. But that's not why we helped you. We helped you because it was the right thing to do." "Dr. Marcus," Scarlet said excitedly, "this is the Admiral we told you about. He's supposed to be really smart and really strong. Maybe you can be friends too." Scorchtalon found himself in a position no military commander ever wants to face, having his tactical decisions questioned by innocent children who genuinely couldn't understand why anyone would want to hurt their friends. "Dr. Webb," the Admiral said finally, "I want to see these hatchlings immediately. If they have been harmed or coerced in any way, your death will serve as an example to every human in the galaxy." "Of course, Admiral," Dr. Webb replied without fear. "They're in our main medical bay, and they're eager to meet you. Fair warning, though, they've been asking everyone they meet if they want to hear the song Captain Chen taught them. You may want to prepare yourself for an impromptu performance." Despite himself, Scorchtalon found his anger cooling slightly. The interaction he was witnessing didn't match any of his preconceptions about human behavior. They weren't cowering or begging for mercy. Instead, they were treating him like a potential friend, while simultaneously protecting the hatchlings in their care. "I will board your vessel in 1 hour," Scorchtalon announced. "Commander Zethkar will accompany me. If this is some kind of elaborate trap, both our fleets will ensure that every human in this system dies screaming." "Understood, Admiral," Captain Chen replied. "We'll have Dr. Webb and the hatchlings ready to meet you. I think you'll find the experience educational." The hour that followed was the longest of Zethkar's life. He knew that Scorchtalon was looking for any excuse to justify his preconceptions about human treachery. One wrong word, one suspicious action, and the fragile peace he had built over the past week would explode into a war that would consume thousands of lives. When they boarded the human ship, Zethkar was amazed to see that the entire crew had turned out to greet them. Humans lined the corridors, not as prisoners or supplicants, but as hosts welcoming important guests. Children peeked out from behind their parents, their eyes wide with curiosity at seeing real dragons up close. "Welcome aboard the New Haven," Captain Chen said formally. "Dr. Webb is waiting in the medical bay with your young ones." High Admiral Scorchtalon said nothing as they walked through the ship, but Zethkar could see him taking in every detail, the cleanliness, the efficiency, the obvious care that had gone into creating a home for thousands of people in the cold vastness of space. When they reached the medical bay, Dr. Webb was indeed waiting with the 3 hatchlings. But what Scorchtalon saw stopped him in his tracks. The young dragons weren't restrained or confined. Instead, they were playing with human children while their parents watched with obvious affection. "Admiral Scorchtalon," Flametooth squealed with delight, "you're even bigger than Uncle Zeth said you would be. Do you want to see my new toy? Dr. Marcus made it special for dragons." The young dragon held up a cleverly designed puzzle that was obviously sized for claws rather than human fingers. It was clear that someone had spent considerable time and effort creating toys specifically for dragon children. "Scarlet wanted to show you her wing," Dr. Webb said. "The healing has progressed remarkably well, and she's very proud of how strong she's getting." Scarlet spread her small wing, showing scales that were growing back healthy and strong. "Look, Admiral, Dr. Marcus says I'll be able to fly better than ever because he fixed all the hurt places." Emberwing, not to be left out, announced, "Captain Chen taught us a song about brave dragon warriors. Do you want to hear it?" Before Scorched Talon could respond, all three hatchlings began singing in their clear young voices. It was indeed a dragon war song, but adapted to include verses about friendship and cooperation between different species. The humans in the room joined in where they could, their voices blending with the dragons in an impromptu choir that should have been impossible. High Admiral Scorched Talon, veteran of 100 battles and destroyer of countless enemies, found himself listening to a song about peace performed by the very beings he had come to kill. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. "Dr. Webb," he said when the song ended, "approach me." The human doctor walked forward without hesitation, stopping within reach of claws that could end his life in an instant. "Yes, Admiral?" "You have cared for these hatchlings as if they were your own young," Scorched Talon said slowly. "Why?" Dr. Webb considered the question seriously. "Because they needed help, and I had the ability to provide it. Because they were scared and alone, and no child should have to face that. Because in caring for them, I've learned things about dragon physiology that could help save other lives in the future. But mostly, because they've become part of our family, and families protect each other." "Family," Scorched Talon repeated the word as if testing its meaning. "You consider these dragon hatchlings to be part of your human family? Don't you consider all young dragons to be worth protecting?" Dr. Webb asked in return. "Isn't that why you came here with such a large fleet? Because someone told you that children were in danger?" For a long moment, the medical bay was completely silent, except for the quiet sounds of the life support systems. Then, to everyone's amazement, High Admiral Scorched Talon began to laugh. It wasn't the terrifying sound they had heard earlier, but something warmer and more genuine. "Doctor," he said, "you have just taught me something that I should have learned centuries ago. The strength of a species is not measured by the size of its weapons or the fear it inspires in others. It is measured by how it treats the young and the vulnerable." He turned to address Captain Chen. "Captain, I owe you and your crew an apology. I came here expecting to find enemies, but instead I have found something much more rare and valuable. I have found potential allies." "Does this mean you won't hurt the nice humans?" Flametooth asked hopefully. "No, little one," Scorched Talon replied gently. "I will not hurt them. In fact, I think it's time that dragons learn to make friends instead of just enemies." The relief in the room was palpable, but Zethkar knew that the real challenges were just beginning. "Admiral, the High Council will not approve of this decision. They expect us to return with the hatchlings and proof of human punishment. Then the High Council will need to evolve their thinking," Scorched Talon said firmly. "I am declaring this human colony ship to be under the protection of the Dragon Battle Fleet. Any who wish to challenge that decision can face me in personal combat." Captain Chen stepped forward. "Admiral, we appreciate your protection, but we don't want to cause political problems within your civilization. Perhaps there's a middle ground we can find." "What do you suggest?" Scorched Talon asked. "A formal alliance," Captain Chen replied. "Not just between your fleet and our ship, but between our species. We have medical knowledge that could benefit dragons, and you clearly have military capabilities that could help protect human colonies. More importantly, our children could grow up learning from each other instead of fearing each other. Dr. Webb added, "The hatchlings have been asking if they can visit human colonies when they're older, and if human children could visit dragon worlds. They've seen that friendship is possible between our species. Maybe it's time the adults learn from their example." High Admiral Scorchtalon looked around the medical bay, seeing 3 young dragons playing happily with human children, while their respective parents watched with growing understanding. In that moment, he realized that he was witnessing the beginning of something that could change the entire galaxy. "Very well," he said formally. "I hereby propose a formal alliance between the Red Dragon clan and the human colony ship New Haven. Let this be the first step toward a future where our species work together instead of against each other." "Yay!" shouted all the children in the room simultaneously, both human and dragon. And as their joyful voices echoed through the medical bay, 2 species that had been enemies for generations took the first tentative steps toward becoming friends. It wouldn't be easy, and there would certainly be challenges ahead. But for the first time in galactic history, young humans and dragons were growing up together, learning that the universe was big enough for everyone to find their place in it. The Red Dragon clan had indeed come to kill, but they had found something infinitely more valuable than vengeance. They had found hope for a better future, resting safely in the hands of those brave enough to choose compassion over conflict. Years later, when historians studied the beginning of the great alliance that brought peace to the galaxy, they would trace it back to a simple moment: 3 injured dragon hatchlings sleeping peacefully on a human doctor's chest while he sang them lullabies in the darkness of space. Sometimes the most powerful warriors are those who fight not with weapons, but with kindness. And sometimes the greatest victories are won not by destroying your enemies, but by turning them into friends.